fish with human lips, fish with 2 mouths, and even a fish with a human face. Here are the 10 creepiest fish ever caught. Number 10. Goonch Catfish. There are a lot of pretty creepy fish crawling around in the lakes, rivers and oceans of our world, and one notoriously creepy fish is the Goonch Catfish. This thing is an ugly monster that can get up to 6.6 feet long and weigh up to 400 pounds. And an enormous one was recently caught in the Ramganga River in northern India. This particular creepy Goonch catfish is unique for its size, as a local news report claims it could have been the biggest catfish ever found inside a Himalayan river. But it never got to be weighed, as the villagers who caught this slippery catfish were too hungry and ate it before any kind of certification could be done. Or maybe they were just scared of it. This massive Goonch catfish looks more like a shark or a whale than a fish. It's absolutely enormous. The villagers had to carry it back home tied to a massive pole. It took 2 men to carry it between them. The Goonch catfish is pretty terrifying and appeared on an episode of River Monsters called Killer Catfish, Season 1, Episode 2. In this episode, Jeremy Wade investigated a series of freshwater attacks on people in the Kali River. Everyone thought this thing was to blame. It is rumoured to have developed a taste for human flesh after feeding on corpses thrown into the river after funeral ceremonies. However, it doesn't seem likely that this fish would make people disappear. I certainly wouldn't mess with this monster, but it probably made for one impressive fish fry. Let me know if you think this fish is dangerous in the comments below. Number 9. Siamese Carp. A British man in Thailand recently caught the world's biggest and creepiest carp after an incredible 80-minute battle to get the fish from the water and into his arms. Just imagine wrestling with a fishing line for a full 80 minutes. It's one intense workout, especially dealing with Siamese carp, which are absolutely huge. Not to mention they are super creepy with their weird scales, stubby fins and bug eyes. This particular catch, however, is something of a miracle. As the biggest carp ever caught, it weighed an astounding 232 pounds, that's 105 kilograms. The carp was so heavy that they had to use special scales on a stainless steel tripod just to get a proper measurement. The man who caught the fish couldn't even hold it by himself. It took the help of 2 other people just to raise the carp out of the water to get a photograph. Siamese carp are the biggest species in the entire world, and they are found naturally in all kinds of river basins around Asia. And as the name implies, the Siamese carp is extremely common in Thailand. Just imagine finding this chunky fellow in your swimming pool. He looks big enough to take down a human, and if he had managed to drag the fisherman into the water, there's no doubt who would have won that struggle. Number 8. Two-mouthed trout. Of course, everyone wants to see the most bizarre mutant fish. The fish we're talking about now is a two-mouthed trout caught in New York. But it's not the only one of its kind. There have been several reports in recent years of mutant trout being caught with 2 jaws instead of 1. This newest incident, as reported by The Independent, was as recent as 2019. And yes, there are lots of theories swirling around about this bizarre fish. It was hooked out on Lake Champlain in Plattsburgh, New York, and the photos of the fish show that it has a normal mouth, but then a secondary jaw underneath that doesn't appear to be fully formed. But it definitely has 2 mouths. The woman who caught the fish believes that the secondary mouth could have been caused by an injury, very likely from another fisherman. However, there are lots of other interesting theories. Some people say it could have been a mutation, it could have been a birth defect, or it could have been caused by pollution. Other people believe it could have something to do with the sea monster that is believed to live in Lake Champlain, although the fish only weighed about 6 pounds, or 3 kilograms, so it's not much of a sea monster. According to an expert doctor and fish researcher at London's Natural History Museum, this trout is actually pretty normal. Apparently, all fish have a set of gill arches behind their jaws. The doctor believes that this fish either suffered from a birth defect or an injury that caused the skin and muscle that would normally cover that portion of his body to be lost, and therefore the skeletal structure was exposed and it looked just like a second mouth. I prefer to think of it as a radioactive mutant. Maybe another one will be discovered with extra fins or even claws. Yikes! What do you think about these mutant fish? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss on the next videos. Number 7. Fish with lips. If you've ever been interested in kissing a fish on a dare, this is going to be some good news for you. A recent catch out of Malaysia shows a bizarre fish with lips that are weirdly human. And yes, it even has teeth that look extremely human. In fact, everything about the mouth of this fish is human. It could kiss you and bite you at the same time. If that's not the creepiest thing you've ever seen on a fish, well, I don't know what fish you're looking at. And while a lot of people were claiming the photo to be edited after it rose online in 2020, it is 100% real. This type of fish is actually known as a triggerfish, and there are about 40 different kinds of them according to National Geographic. The biggest fish is the stone triggerfish, and it can grow to be around 3.5 feet or 1 meter long. They are typically found in the eastern Pacific and live at the bottom of the ocean, sucking out crabs and worms from the bottom of the sea with their weird lips. The fish's weird teeth are actually used to bite apart sea urchins and eat them. The specific fish in this photo is most likely a black patch triggerfish, and it's a pretty well-known species around the Great Barrier Reef, which does include Malaysia, the area the fish was caught. I still wouldn't get near that face, too creepy. Number 6. Human-faced fish. Another very human-like fish was caught creeping out tourists in a Chinese lake last year. The video of the human-faced fish made it online in 2019, and it was apparently taken by a visitor outside of the city of Kunming in southern China. The video clearly shows a creature with a fish's body and the face of a person. There is literally no other way you can possibly interpret the fish. It looks like a bald man's frowning face, like something terrifying out of a horror movie. The woman who actually filmed the video of the fish can be heard screaming in the background that the fish turned into a fairy. Of course, fairies don't exist, and there is definitely not a fish with a human face. It's really just a weird looking carp with bizarre features that makes it look a lot like a human-faced fish. According to The Sun, it's not the only one of its kind. In 2009, a carp with a human face was discovered in South Korea, and in 2010, another carp with a human face was sold for over $40,000. In 2016, a third carp with a human face was caught in the Hunan province of China by a primary school teacher who, instead of eating the fish, decided to keep it in his home. Could this be the next step in evolution or just a weird coincidence? You be the judge. Number 5. Creepy octopus thing. A creepy octopus fish has been reeled in near Coney Island, New York. This is a classic example of a mysterious deep-sea fish being unexpectedly caught by a fisherman. Many people have pulled out bizarre things over the years, but this one is really strange. It looks like a monster from an alien movie, or like a baby kraken that somehow got too close to the surface. It appears to have 3 tentacle legs, a weird fat head that almost looks like an octopus, and basically no bones. But it's probably not really that mysterious. The fish is most likely a clear-nosed skatefish, which is closely related to a stingray. It could just be that its wings are tucked underneath its body and don't protrude at all. In the video where the fish is flopping around on the boards and looking a lot like an alien, it's highly likely that the fish is just suffering and misshapen because it's not in the water where it's supposed to be. Underwater, this fish would be floating flat over the bottom just like a stingray. On land, it looks like a weird malformed sea monster. Number 4. Bearded fireworm. A fisherman in Texas has caught one of the strangest worms that you will ever see in your life. It's known as a bearded fireworm, and it's not only creepy, it's super poisonous. As the story goes, the woman was at the pier in Port Isabel when she reeled in her line. At first, she thought she had gotten seaweed tangled on her hook, but after a closer look, she realised it was a creepy worm. The worm was covered in bristles and coloured bright red. Luckily, the woman who reeled in the bizarre worm was smart enough to recognise the bright colours and not touch it. If she had, the fireworm could have given her an extremely painful sting. Fireworms spend most of their lives on the floor of the ocean and use their bristles to stab predators and inject them with powerful neurotoxin. A single sting will make you feel like you're on fire, and the sensation can last for hours. These creepy worms hide under rocks in the daytime and then come out at night to eat the remains of already dead sea animals. As far as creepy things go, these worms are up there. Great, now we all have another thing to fear stepping on when we go for a swim at the beach. Number 3. Alien fish. It's not a typo, a fish that looks just like an alien has been caught in Norway. While some people are saying this fish resembles a creepy prehistoric sea monster, others think it looks like a weird alien fish. It was caught by a young Norwegian fisherman back in 2019 off the island of Andøya in Norway. The man who caught the fish was working as a sports fishing guide and was trying to catch blue halibut when he instead caught the creepiest fish of his life. According to him, it took about 30 minutes to reel in the fish. That was because his line was around 2,600 feet deep. The fish that he caught was slimy, it had eyes that were way too big for its body, and it looked like an overgrown tadpole. But the specimen is not actually an alien, of course. It is, however, prehistoric. The fish is known as a ratfish, and it's a relative of the shark dating back to around 300 million years ago. The fish eats crustaceans and is pretty non-threatening, living deep in the ocean. According to the man who caught the fish, it tastes great. The way it looks just turns me off from ever trying it though. I could never eat an alien. Number 2. Mississippi's Fishzilla. There's an invasive and super creepy fish plaguing the waterways of Mississippi, and it's being called the Fishzilla. Recent catches of the so-called Fishzilla, also known as the northern snakehead fish, are beginning to freak out fishermen in the area along the Mississippi. The snakehead fish is not an indigenous species, and the fact that these fish are appearing in bigger and bigger numbers is very disturbing, since they have the potential to wipe out much of the local species and disrupt the ecosystem. Apparently, these fish first came to the region as pets in people's homes, but over the years, they have been let out into the wild and now they are growing in numbers. The reason they are so creepy is because they can crawl out onto the land and survive on the shore. They look a lot like snakes. A northern snakehead can even slime its way across land like a big fat snake. Fish living on land, making their way across the lakes and rivers of the world and preying on the helpless native populations, sounds like Fishzilla is a pretty smart nickname after all. Number 1. Toothy Fish. This number 1 candidate for the creepiest fish looks like an American relative of the famous piranha. It was caught in Oklahoma waters by an 11-year-old girl. Just like with the northern snakehead, this is an invasive species that has no business being anywhere near Oklahoma. The fish is a pacu, and they typically belong in South America. However, people illegally dump them into the lakes and they slowly begin to thrive as apex predators. This particular creepy catch has teeth that are way too human for anyone to feel comfortable with. Opening up this thing's mouth reveals jagged teeth, all bumpy and weird like the fish hasn't brushed them for 30 years. But I'm sure he wouldn't hesitate to make any of us into a snack. I'll be watching very carefully before I set foot in any body of water again. Which fish is the absolute creepiest? Which one was your favourite? Have you ever caught anything like this? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you again soon for another exciting video. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.